So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're going to check out another one of the new Syndicate melee weapons, the Vaykor Sydon. Now to get this weapon, you either have to buy it from other players or you have to reach the rank of General, which is the highest rank with the Steel Meridian Syndicate, and it costs a whopping 125,000 standing. The Vaykor Sydon, just like the other Syndicate melee weapons, has a unique mechanic instead of the Syndicate proc that you find on primary and secondary weapons. And the one DE chose for the Vaykor Sydon is definitely one of my favorites, because if you manage to block 15 consecutive hits without dropping your guard, and then you release the guard, you will cast Radio Blind, which will blind all enemies within 15 meters for 5 seconds. Now the range of this Radio Blind is affected by Reach and Primed Reach, and oh boy, when you put Primed Reach on the Vaykor Sydon, your Radio Blind is gonna cover a huge area. And just like with Excalibur's Radio Blind, this will stun the enemies and open them up to finishers, which is just an amazing thing to have on a melee weapon. And that's not the only good thing about the Vaykor Sydon, because it's also a direct upgrade to the original Sydon, which was already a pretty strong polearm. So it does higher puncture damage of 80.8 versus the original 71.3, and higher impact damage of 4.3 versus the original 3.8, so in total it does 85.1 damage versus the original 75. This also results in higher wall attack, spin attack, and leap attack damage, which is pretty cool. The critical chance has been upgraded to 15%, up from 10. It has faster attack speed of 1.08 versus the original 0.917, and it has a V polarity, whereas the original Sydon didn't have any. And other than that, the status chance is still 25%, so if you want to, you can build it for status. And since the critical multiplier is still 200% and the critical chance has been upgraded, you can even build it for blood rush and body count. And of course, it is a polearm, so the range is pretty ridiculous, although it is not quite as ridiculous as it is with Orthos Prime. Now, the weapon is not perfect. There are a couple of downsides, like the lack of slash damage, so it's not the best against fleshier units, although the weapon does so much damage when it gets going with a decent build that it doesn't really matter. And when you're blocking and you're building up towards the Radio Blind, if you attack or you drop your block before you block 15 hits, all the stacks will drop and you have to do it again. And that's kind of it for the downsides for this weapon. It's just really good. Now with the budget setup, I went for a status build because I don't think it's worth going for crit if you are not using blood rush and body count. The stance we're going to use is Shimmering Blind, which is a really good stance. It has some really cool combos and it matches the polarity, so we don't have to format the weapon. Then we're going to use Pressure Point for more damage, Fury for some attack speed, and Reach to increase the already ridiculous range of the polearm and also increase the range of the blind. Then personally, I am using a fully ranked Lifestrike. That's just my personal preference because I like to tap channeling, hit the enemies once and get all my health back. Now, some people disagree with me using Lifestrike on a budget build, but Lifestrike nowadays is very cheap. If you go onto Warframe Market, you will see like 20 people selling it for 5 to 10 platinum. So, even though it used to be pretty rare, nowadays not so much. Now, another thing people pointed out with my budget build, and something that I actually agree with, is that Voltaic Strike should not be in a budget build because, well, you can't get it in the game. You have to buy it from Barakatir or from other players, and it's pretty expensive. So we're going to use Shocking Touch instead, and we're going to combine it with Virulent Sketch to give us corrosive damage and a little bit of status chance. And finally, we're going to use Volcanic Edge and Vicious Frost to give us blast damage. Now, one really cool thing about this build is that it still has 10 mod capacity left, so if you don't like Shimmering Blight, you can just swap it for Bleeding Willow without changing the stance polarity. It's still gonna fit and you're gonna have 4 mod capacity left. And if you're not the biggest fan of blast damage and you just don't want crowd control in there because you already have the blind on the weapon, you can easily swap out Vicious Frost for Molten Impact so you have more heat damage. Now with this setup, you will sacrifice a little bit of status chance, but you're gonna have a lot of heat damage that will help you deal with the fleshier unit, so overall it's pretty good as well. Now this is the setup I would use versus the Corrupted and the Infested. Versus Grunier and Corpus, I would use this one instead. And this one has Shocking Touch and Volcanic Edge for radiation damage, and Virulent Scourge with Vicious Frost for viral damage. Now the build I decided to go for is a 2-forma build, and what I did with that forma is added a V and a dash, but if you want to add 2 Vs, that's fine as well. I'm still using the Shimmering Blight stance because it's just really good, Primed Pressure Point for a lot more damage, and the Blood Rush Body Count combo to give me a ton of critical chance, as well as increase the duration on my combo counter. Then since I have a lot of critical chance, I'm using Berserker to give me a ton of attack speed, and Primed Reach to increase the range of the weapon and the blind. Then I've subbed on Maiming Strike because this is a polearm, so it has a lot of range on the slide attack, it also has a lot of damage on the slide attack, and when you have Blood Rush and Body Count on the Vaykor Sydon, you only need to get like 20 to 40 hits and you will start doing red crits with every slide attack. It's also kind of nice for kickstarting Berserker at the beginning of a mission. And finally, I decided to go for only 2 elemental mods, so I'm using Shocking Touch and Fever Strike for corrosive damage. And I thought about this a lot. I really wanted to get heat damage in there, but at the end I decided to go for full crit because it just performs much better. At first I was kind of worried about the Infested because I didn't have any slash or heat damage on the weapon, but as you can see on the screen right now, even without any slash or heat damage, the Infested still die incredibly quickly. Now granted, this setup is not the best against the Corpus, but then again, who in their right mind would go full melee against the Corpus? You're just trying to make yourself angry if you do that. But anyway, this is just an amazing melee weapon, and I would definitely recommend it. It performs really well with both a status and a crit build. It's overall a very powerful melee weapon, and the blind is so very good if you're going up against anything other than the Infested. With the Infested, it's kind of eh. But if you're going up against the Grenier, the Corrupted, or even the Corpus, it is just really good. So this is a definite yes from me. If you can get this weapon, grab it. It is really good. It's really fun. It's just awesome, alright? And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching, as always, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.